When we speak of World War II atrocities, our minds leap to Nazi death camps, gas chambers, and Hitler's evil machine. But what if I told you that some of the most sadistic experiments in human history weren't committed in Europe, but in Asia? By a man who never faced justice, who dissected children without anesthesia, who unleashed plague bombs on entire cities, and who lived peacefully until his death. This is the horrifying truth about Japan's Unit 731. And the man behind it, Shirō Ishii, a name history tried to forget. The monster in the lab coat. Shirō Ishii was born in 1892 to an elite Japanese samurai family. Brilliant and ambitious, he climbed the academic ladder, earning a doctorate in microbiology and quickly joining the Imperial Japanese Army's Medical Corps. But Ishii wasn't interested in saving lives. He was obsessed with power, and believed bacteria could be weaponized better than bullets. In 1925, when the Geneva Protocol banned biological warfare, Ishii saw not a moral boundary, but an opportunity. He convinced Japan's military elite that biological weapons could give the empire an unstoppable edge. By 1936, with full support from the Japanese government, Ishii built a sprawling facility in the puppet state of Manchukuo, northeast China. He called it the Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. But behind the gates, it was hell on earth. Unit 731, Japan's Death Factory. The world would come to know it by another name. Unit 731. What looked like a medical research center was actually a slaughterhouse for human experimentation. Over 150 buildings, surrounded by barbed wire and guard towers. No journalists. No oversight. No mercy. The victims? Anyone considered expendable. Chinese civilians, Korean prisoners, Mongolian peasants, Russian captives, and even Allied soldiers, including Americans and Australians. Inside, they were dehumanized. Stripped of names, reduced to mere numbers, referred to as logs, like firewood for experimentation. Let's walk into the nightmare. Experiments that defied humanity. 1. Vivisection without anesthesia. Prisoners were infected with diseases like plague, anthrax, syphilis. And when the infection spread, doctors sliced them open, alive. No anesthesia. No sedation. Organs were removed one by one, just to observe the dying process. 2. Frostbite studies. Soldiers needed to survive harsh climates, so Ishii froze prisoners' limbs solid. They were doused with ice water in the winter until the skin blackened. Then, the flesh was struck with sticks to test if it had frozen right. 3. Biological bomb tests. Entire villages were targeted. Planes dropped ceramic bombs filled with plague-infected fleas, typhoid bacteria, and cholera into Chinese cities. Wells were poisoned. Rice was laced with anthrax. Even rats carrying disease were let loose to trigger outbreaks. Over 500,000 people were killed, not in battle, but in field experiments. 4. Sex and reproductive torture. Women were forced to have intercourse with infected men to study sexually transmitted diseases. Pregnant women were dissected alive so scientists could study fetal infection. 5. Explosive tests on children. Infants were used to test grenades and flamethrowers. Some were tied to stakes, while bombs were detonated to calculate blast radii. This wasn't science. It was slaughter, masked in the name of research. Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. By 1945, Japan was losing the war. But Ishii had one final plan, a biological 9/11. He called it Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. His vision? Load submarines with plague-infected fleas. Launch kamikaze planes off the coast of California. And drop the fleas over San Diego, triggering a plague outbreak in the United States. The plan was real. It was approved. Only the atomic bomb and Japan's surrender stopped it. But Ishii's evil didn't die with the war. The deal with the devil. When Japan surrendered, Ishii knew his crimes would catch up to him. So he burned Unit 731 to the ground, killed every remaining prisoner, and tried to disappear. The Soviets wanted him tried for war crimes. But the Americans, specifically the U.S. Army and CIA, had other ideas. They didn't want justice. They wanted his research. In one of the darkest deals of the 20th century, the U.S. granted Ishii and his staff full immunity, in exchange for their data on biological warfare. None of them stood trial. Many went on to lead careers in Japan's post-war pharmaceutical industry. Ishii himself lived quietly, under government protection. He died of throat cancer in 1959, never prosecuted, never punished. Why you never heard of this? Unlike Nazi war criminals who faced the Nuremberg trials, the architects of Unit 731 vanished into the shadows, erased from textbooks, shielded by secrecy. Japan denied Unit 731's existence for decades. And to this day, many in Japan still don't learn about it in school. There are no memorials, no justice, only silence. And yet, the victims scream through history. History's warning. So what do we take from this horror? It's a reminder. Evil doesn't always wear a swastika. It sometimes wears a lab coat. It smiles behind a surgical mask. And it gets protected when its crimes are useful. Unit 731 is not just a historical footnote. It's a warning. That power without conscience, that science without ethics, leads not to progress, but to annihilation. May we never forget the victims. May we never repeat this silence. If this story disturbed you, don't let it fade. Like, subscribe, and share, because the truth must be louder than the silence. Comment below if you've heard of Unit 731 before. And tell us, should Shirō Ishii be remembered as one of the greatest war criminals in human history? Thanks for watching. Never forget. Never again.